Donald Trump is back in the Oval Office, but this time he's not just fighting for America, he's fighting for the soul of its families. As woke critics launch their fiercest attacks yet, one question looms. Can Trump's bold stand on traditional values survive the firestorm? If you enjoy stories of real values, then please subscribe to the channel. Now let's continue. Donald Trump stood at the podium in a packed stadium in Florida, the roaring cheers of his supporters echoing across the venue. His trademark confidence radiated as he leaned into the microphone, announcing the family's first agenda, a bold new initiative aimed at reviving what he called the bedrock of American greatness, traditional family values. The energy in the crowd was electric, with chants of USA, USA reverberating through the night air. He painted a vivid picture of an America strengthened by families who put loyalty, hard work, and unity above all else, promising policies that would prioritize parental rights, safeguard religious freedoms, and offer unprecedented tax breaks for middle-class families. The backlash was immediate. Social media platforms lit up with a torrent of criticism from progressive voices. Influential commentators called the initiative regressive and accused Trump of trying to drag America back to a time when women were relegated to the home and LGBTQ+ families were marginalized. Memes mocking the family's first agenda flooded timelines, with hashtags like #BackwardTrump trending globally. Late-night talk show hosts piled on, ridiculing the president's remarks and dismissing his agenda as a political ploy to energize his base. Progressive think tanks released scathing op-eds within hours, warning of the dangerous implications of what they framed as an exclusionary, outdated vision of family. But Trump was undeterred. The next evening, during a primetime interview with a major news network, he delivered a fiery rebuttal. America was built on strong families, and I'll defend them no matter what, he declared, his voice firm and resolute. He cited examples of how broken families contributed to societal decline and argued that his policies would uplift every American, regardless of political affiliation. His words struck a chord with many, particularly among suburban and rural voters who felt alienated by the rapid cultural shifts of the last decade. Just as the tide seemed to shift slightly in his favor, a leaked memo from a major progressive organization hit the headlines. The memo outlined a coordinated strategy to undermine Trump's initiative by targeting his own family. It suggested weaponizing past controversies, digging into Melania's quiet public role as First Lady, and revisiting old allegations involving his children's business dealings. The document was damning, presenting a direct attempt to discredit Trump's credibility by exploiting his own narrative of being a family man. The revelation sent shockwaves through the media. Supporters rallied behind Trump, accusing the opposition of hypocrisy and dirty tactics. Meanwhile, critics doubled down, insisting that Trump's family dynamics were fair game given the bold moral claims embedded in his agenda. As the dust settled, the stage was set for an explosive clash between Trump's vision for America's future and the forces rallying to dismantle it, leaving the public hanging on every development in this high-stakes battle for the soul of the nation. The backlash against Donald Trump's family's first agenda escalated with surgical precision. Progressive critics unleashed a coordinated campaign targeting the very foundation of Trump's initiative, his family. Old controversies were dredged up with renewed vigor. Ivanka and Jared Kushner's roles in his previous administration were scrutinized under a harsh light, with critics alleging nepotism and blurred lines between public service and private gain. Speculation about Donald Trump Jr.'s personal life became fodder for tabloids and talk shows, painting the Trump family as emblematic of hypocrisy rather than traditional values. Social media erupted with viral posts and memes, accusing Trump of projecting an ideal he and his family had failed to live up to. The narrative began to shift, with prominent voices questioning whether the Trumps had any moral authority to lecture the nation on family values. Trump, however, was no stranger to attacks on his family and responded with characteristic defiance. Standing in the White House Rose Garden, He addressed the nation with a speech that shifted the focus from controversy to conviction. Speaking directly to the heart of his base, Trump described the sacrifices his family had made for the country. He spoke of Melania's unwavering dedication as a mother and a role model, recounting personal anecdotes about her nurturing influence on their son, Barron, and her tireless work behind the scenes. His voice softened as he acknowledged the challenges his children faced, growing up under the constant microscope of public life. "The media and the elites don't just hate me," he said. "They hate what we stand for, faith, family, and freedom. But we will never back down." The speech struck a chord, resonating deeply with suburban families who saw their own struggles and triumphs reflected in Trump's words. His approval ratings, which had taken a hit during the initial wave of criticism, began to climb among key demographics. Suburban moms, a critical voting bloc, voiced their support on social media, with many praising Trump's defense of his family as heartfelt and relatable. Pundits on conservative networks declared the speech a turning point, framing Trump as a leader unafraid to defend the traditional values under attack in modern America. The momentum was palpable, and for a moment, it seemed as though the tide had turned in his favor. But the reprieve was short-lived. Just as Trump's speech was being lauded as a triumph, an anonymous whistleblower came forward with claims that threatened to unravel his narrative. The whistleblower alleged to have evidence contradicting Trump's portrayal of himself as a devoted family man. Although details were scarce, the mere existence of the allegations reignited the media frenzy. Speculation swirled about the nature of the evidence, and opponents seized the opportunity to question Trump's integrity once again. As the news cycle shifted, the stage was set for an even fiercer battle, leaving the public bracing for revelations that could either vindicate or shatter Trump's carefully crafted image. The headlines hit like a thunderclap, a major media outlet running an explosive piece accusing Donald Trump of hypocrisy in his defense of family values. The article dug deep into a decades-old legal case involving one of Trump's real estate ventures, alleging that his business practices had directly harmed working-class families. It claimed that tenants had been displaced due to aggressive development strategies, painting a picture of a man whose actions contradicted his rhetoric about protecting the American family. The story quickly dominated the news cycle, amplified by pundits and social media alike, who called Trump's entire family's first agenda a sham. Trump's critics pounced, pointing to the piece as proof that his initiatives were nothing more than political theater designed to bolster his image. Talk shows dissected the allegations with gusto, and progressive groups launched campaigns calling for investigations into his past dealings. Hashtags like #FamilyFraud and #TrumpExposed began trending, creating an online storm of outrage. The opposition framed the allegations as the smoking gun they needed to dismantle Trump's credibility, portraying him as a man whose personal ambitions had always come at the expense of others. But Trump refused to stay on the defensive. The following day, he held a fiery press conference in the East Room of the White House. Standing before a packed crowd of reporters, he addressed the allegations head-on, accusing the media of distorting the facts and weaponizing lies to divide the country. "This is what they do. They dig up old stories, twist the truth, and expect you to believe that the man standing here today is the same as he was 30 years ago," he declared, his voice rising with conviction. He pivoted quickly, emphasizing his administration's achievements in lowering taxes, expanding child care credits, and creating job opportunities for families across the country. "They don't want you to see the progress we've made. They don't want you to know that under my leadership, American families are stronger than ever." The room erupted in questions, but Trump cut them off with a confident smile. The press conference wasn't just about rebutting the allegations. It was about regaining control of the narrative, and he succeeded. In a surprising twist, later that evening, a Democratic congressman broke ranks with his party during a cable news interview, offering praise for Trump's policies on family leave and child care tax credits. "Look, I may not agree with him on everything, but I'll give credit where it's due," These policies are refreshingly bipartisan and a step in the right direction, the congressman said, catching both sides of the aisle off guard. The endorsement sent shockwaves through political circles, temporarily shifting the focus away from the media hit piece. Sensing the perfect moment to seize momentum, Trump announced that he would reveal a personal story during the upcoming State of the Union address that would, in his words, prove once and for all his unwavering commitment to family values. The announcement left the media scrambling and the public buzzing with anticipation, setting the stage for a dramatic showdown on one of the biggest platforms in American politics. As the date of the State of the Union address approached, the skepticism and ridicule reached a fever pitch. Critics on social media dismissed Donald Trump's promise of a personal revelation as nothing more than a cheap political stunt designed to distract from recent allegations. Hashtags like hashtag Trump hypocrisy and hashtag state of distraction trended for days, with pundits accusing him of weaponizing sentimentality to shield himself from scrutiny. Editorials mocked the idea that any story he could tell would redeem his controversial legacy or shift the perception of his family's first agenda. Late-night comedians doubled down, preemptively parodying the address as a carnival of self-congratulation. The Capitol was electric with anticipation as Trump took the stage for his address. His demeanor was unusually solemn, his gaze steady as he greeted the room. The speech began predictably, with Trump touting his administration's achievements, record low unemployment, tax relief for families, and expanded support for child care. But halfway through, the tone shifted. Trump paused, placing his hands on the podium and speaking with an uncharacteristic softness. He began to recount a story about his mother, Mary Trump. He described her as the cornerstone of their family, a woman of quiet strength who taught him the values of loyalty, perseverance, and love for one's family. His voice wavered slightly as he shared memories of her reading to him as a child, instilling in him the belief that family was the foundation of any great life. The room fell silent, the weight of his words hanging heavy in the air. Trump spoke of how his mother's sacrifices shaped his perspective and how her lessons guided him through the toughest moments of his life. He drew a direct line between her influence and the policies he was now championing, framing them as a tribute to the values she had lived by. She taught me that family isn't just who you're born with, it's who you stand by, fight for, and protect, he said. His voice grew firmer as he added, and that's what I'm doing for the American family. The moment resonated deeply, even among those who had been skeptical. There was a ripple of applause that grew into a standing ovation, a rare bipartisan acknowledgement of the emotional depth of his words. Some Democratic lawmakers, known for their criticism of Trump, stood hesitantly before joining in. The nation watching at home saw a side of Trump that few had witnessed, and for a moment, the polarization seemed to fade. But the aftermath proved short-lived. As Trump exited the chamber, a major progressive activist cornered him during a post-address interview. With cameras rolling, the activist accused him of hiding behind sentimentality to push a divisive agenda that excluded modern definitions of family. The confrontation was sharp, reigniting the cultural debate with even more intensity. The emotional high of the speech was now juxtaposed with the fiery clash, leaving the nation grappling with what they had just witnessed and eager to see how Trump would respond. The confrontation was as explosive as it was unexpected. Just moments after leaving the chamber to a mix of applause and renewed criticism, Donald Trump found himself face-to-face with one of his fiercest detractors. The activist, a well-known progressive figure, wasted no time launching into an impassioned critique. Cameras rolled as they accused Trump of using his emotional tribute to his mother as a smokescreen, claiming that his policies excluded diverse families and marginalized communities. The activist's voice was sharp, their points rehearsed and rapid-fire, clearly designed to put Trump on the defensive. Yet, instead of bristling or walking away, Trump stood firm, leaning slightly toward the microphone with his trademark smirk. He began his response with a calm confidence, dismantling the activist's argument piece by piece. "I appreciate your passion, but let's talk about facts," he started, pausing briefly to let the room quiet. Trump listed specific achievements, expanded childcare credits, reduced taxes for working families, and increased funding for family leave programs. He cited real-life examples of families who had directly benefited from these policies, weaving in anecdotes from Americans he had met at rallies and town halls. "You could talk all you want about inclusivity," he said, pointing his finger for emphasis, "but I'm the one actually helping families who are struggling to put food on the table." The activist attempted to interject, accusing Trump of ignoring the needs of LGBTQ+ families and single parents. Trump countered smoothly, leaning on humor to disarm the tension. Maybe if some of these critics had better family values, they wouldn't spend all day on Twitter, he quipped, prompting laughter from some reporters and groans from others. The remark quickly went viral, with clips flooding social media and hashtags like #TrumpBurn trending within hours. Supporters hailed it as a moment of unfiltered truth, while critics labeled it arrogant and dismissive. The exchange became a defining moment, shifting the momentum once again in Trump's favor. Polls conducted in the aftermath revealed growing support for the family's first agenda among key swing voters, particularly in suburban districts where cultural issues often swayed elections. Even some of Trump's detractors admitted grudgingly that his points about real-world policy impact carried weight, though they criticized his delivery as combative. Just as the dust from the verbal duel began to settle, a new report emerged that reignited the firestorm. Investigative journalists uncovered evidence suggesting that a prominent tech company had actively suppressed positive coverage of Trump's family initiative. Internal emails revealed discussions about deprioritizing pro-Trump content to counterbalance the administration's narrative. The revelation sent shockwaves through both political and media circles, as accusations of bias and censorship began to dominate the conversation. For Trump, the news was an unexpected gift, offering him yet another opportunity to frame himself as a champion of free speech and a victim of an elite conspiracy. As the story unfolded, the nation found itself caught between competing narratives, with the stakes of the cultural battle higher than ever. The whispers of collusion between tech giants and progressive activists erupted into a full-blown scandal when a whistleblower leaked damning emails to a congressional oversight committee. The documents revealed a coordinated effort among several high-profile tech companies to suppress positive stories about Donald Trump's family's first agenda. The emails detailed internal discussions about deprioritizing content that painted the initiative in a favorable light while amplifying criticisms and negative coverage. Even more explosive, the investigation uncovered correspondence with prominent activist groups who had provided detailed strategies to undermine Trump's narrative. The revelation shook Washington, sparking outrage among Trump's supporters and creating a firestorm of accusations from both sides of the political spectrum. Trump wasted no time capitalizing on the scandal. He announced an impromptu rally in Ohio, a critical battleground state, and addressed an electrified crowd. Standing before thousands of supporters waving American flags, he delivered a fiery speech that framed the revelations as part of a broader attack on traditional American values. "They don't just hate me, they hate the values that made America great," he declared, his voice booming over the cheers. He accused the media, big tech, and progressive elites of conspiring to silence the voices of hardworking families across the country. "They want to control what you see, what you think, and what you believe," he continued, pointing into the crowd. "But I will not let them silence us." The crowd erupted into deafening applause, chanting, "USA! USA!" Trump's momentum was palpable as he transitioned to his next announcement. He declared his intention to sign an executive order aimed at protecting freedom of speech and ensuring media transparency. The order, he explained, would require tech platforms to disclose their content moderation practices and hold them accountable for any biases against political or cultural perspectives. "We're putting an end to the censorship," he proclaimed, drawing roars of approval. For his supporters, the announcement was a bold reaffirmation of his commitment to fighting for the values they believed in. And for Trump, it was a strategic masterstroke to turn the narrative in his favor. But just as the energy reached its peak, the opposition struck back with a calculated move. That same evening, the activist group at the heart of the tech scandal released a cryptic statement, promising a final bombshell that they claimed would dismantle Trump's credibility and expose what they called the real agenda behind his family's first initiative. They teased the public with hints of explosive evidence, stoking speculation and reigniting the media frenzy. Headlines buzzed with questions about what the group might reveal, and critics seized on the moment to cast doubt on Trump's motives once again. As the nation braced for yet another dramatic twist, the stakes for Trump's fight to defend his vision of family values and freedom of speech reached a boiling point, leaving his supporters and detractors on edge. The highly anticipated bombshell dropped with theatrical flair, the activist group releasing a heavily edited video that they claimed exposed Donald Trump as a hypocrite. The footage appeared to show Trump in a private meeting, dismissing the impact of his family's first agenda and suggesting it was merely a political tool. The video was immediately picked up by major news outlets, sparking outrage among critics and sending social media into overdrive. Hashtags like #TrumpExposed and #FamilyFraud trended within minutes, with commentators declaring this the final nail in the coffin for Trump's credibility. For a brief moment, it seemed as though the narrative had shifted decisively against him. But the celebration among Trump's opponents was short-lived. Within hours, analysts uncovered discrepancies in the video, pointing out obvious edits and splices that had taken Trump's words out of context. The original, unedited footage was released by a whistleblower from the meeting, showing Trump passionately defending the initiative and expressing his genuine commitment to helping struggling families. The debunking of the activist group's claims was a turning point, casting them as desperate and deceitful. Trump wasted no time, calling a press conference the next day to seize control of the narrative. Standing before the media, Trump delivered a calculated and heartfelt response. He invited several middle-class families onto the stage, families who had directly benefited from his policies. One by one, they shared emotional testimonies. A single mother from Ohio described how the expanded child care tax credits allowed her to pursue higher education while providing for her kids. A factory worker from Michigan talked about how job creation under Trump's administration saved his family from financial ruin. A military spouse from Texas spoke through tears about the new parental leave policies that allowed her to care for her newborn while her husband was deployed. The stories were raw, powerful, and undeniable, silencing even the harshest critics in the room. The press conference went viral, with the testimonies resonating deeply across the political spectrum. Supporters hailed it as a masterstroke, while even some detractors admitted the impact of the policies was clear. In a climactic twist, a high-profile progressive leader appeared on a debate panel later that week and, to everyone's surprise, conceded that Trump's policies, while controversial, had undeniably helped working families. "I don't agree with him on much," the leader admitted, "but credit where credit is due. The family's first agenda has made a difference." Trump capitalized on the momentum, holding a massive rally in Pennsylvania, where tens of thousands of supporters gathered to celebrate the victory. As fireworks lit up the night sky, Trump stood before the cheering crowd, exuding triumph. He delivered his closing remarks with his signature flair, declaring, "We're not just making America great again. We're making American families strong again." The crowd erupted into thunderous applause, the chant of USA, USA, carrying into the night, as Trump solidified his place as a defender of traditional values and a champion of the American family. Please don't forget to watch more heartwarming stories on your screen. For more stories based on real values, hit the subscribe button